Mm. What's up, friends? Hello, hello, hello. Loud noises and stuff. How you doing, everybody? Welcome in. We've got a show for you today. Now, I know it's Friday. Normally, I'd be jumping into the game, playing some stuff, doing some things. Maybe we'll do that, actually. I don't know how long we're going to be here. We have a cooking stream planned for after this. We'll be making some bangers and mash, me and the Mrs. T. She's getting the groceries right now. She loves you all. She says hello from ever yonder. Our closest grocery store is like a solid 20 minutes away, so she's off doing that. But she will be back, and we will get to that after this stream. But for the next 2 hours, I've got you in my grasp. And we're going to do some deep diving. We're going to talk about the Zeus MK2, the Mark II. We'll be looking at its introduction last year. But we'll also be checking out some MFD stuff, because there has been some talk about UI in the past that I would love to get to and chat a little bit more about in terms of like where they were talking about heading in terms of MFDs. And then we'll look at, you know, what they're showing us in ISC yesterday. So this is kind of an react, I guess you could say. But it is a deep-ish dive. And honestly, I'll also be taking some questions from y'all because I do want to hear what you have to think, what you have to ask, what your thoughts are, and what you want to know about this new ship and like the direction of the game and probably the direction of ship production. We haven't seen a multi-crew ship added. I mean, the Spirit is actually, when is the last multi-crew ship we got? Because the Spirit kind of counts, the Hull C kind of counts, but those are both anything that started from maybe the last year or so would be, I think, different from those ships. Not to mention, this is a Montreal ship. Now, if you watched my video from earlier this year, you know Montreal is doing work. They have been hitting on all cylinders. And yes, acquisitions are always tough. I'm sure there have been complications, but they've been doing some pretty solid work when they do get their hands on stuff, starting all the way back with the hospital stuff back in like, man, that was way back here. That was like 3.16, I think it was. 3.15. This was like the first work we saw come in from Montreal. And it took them like 10 months maybe to get the stuff into the game. I was caught off guard by that. But looking at ships that have come in recently. Let's see, we got the Cutter. The Corsair, I think, was maybe the last significant multi-crew ship we got. The Vulture, yeah, that's something, but it's not super big. The Hull C has been in development for like 7 years, 8 years, so that thing is not going to be representative of what they're doing now. The Crusader C1, I think, is a pretty solid example, and it was a good drop into the game. But I'm betting, I haven't watched ISC yet, but I'm betting that the Zeus is a new standard for CIG in terms of building ships, and probably something that they will use as their standard going forward. So I'm excited to watch this ISC, extra excited to see the MFDs because I've been waiting for this for a long time. The MFDs are indicative of their specialized UI for every manufacturer from what we've been seeing from the sneak peek. So I'm betting they're going to talk a little bit about that today. Oh, and I'm excited for it. How's everybody doing though? Welcome in, Notification Gang. Thank you for coming in early. Always appreciate you. You guys are the greatest, the best, my faves. Town Scott, welcome. Vasson, good to see you, dude. Matt Sully, Fault was first. Fault 401, thanks for hopping in, dude. 07, Maverick, welcome. Havoc the Gamer, Elizwin. Elizwin? L.A. Swen? I don't know which one it is, but thanks for being in chat. What's up, Elder Gamesman? Simon with the question already. You getting started early, dude. Maverick, you were on Twitch too? Hello, Echo. Mace, Space Marine. Good to see you, all three of you. Lovely folks. Fastin. Welcome, dude. Patrick. Bearboss. A0 and Rig, my dude. My man, Rig. Blazing Focus, Decent. Mad Rhetoric. Darth Mullen. You're wary of this ship. You have a bay of ships in various degrees of usefulness. I'm sure I'll have much more to say after this episode than before about this ship. I'm so thankful for your presence, Zeppelin. Thank you. Tyrus! We got a Tyrus in the chat. Can I get that sound bite? Quick. Somebody quick. Give me the yell. Give it to me. Hashtag join GII. Dude, it's been like a whole Star Citizen cycle since we saw Tyrus with the hashtag join GAI. I love to see it. Hello, Mabuto. Tyrus. There it is. Tyrus. Thank you, Maverick. Appreciate you, dude. And I just lost my music. Man, I love it when I touch the Go XLR and it turns off music for no reason. Mr. Toes. Merhaba. Hexamir. Hoş geldiniz. Nasılsınız? Squadron 42 will release next year, and the new standard for ships with crews of 1 to 3 people will take 6 to 10 months. It better. Honestly, I think that we should see ships in this category made within about a year. I think we should also not see them announced until maybe a quarter, possibly 2 quarters before they come into the game. That seems like if you were to say we hit Star Citizen 1.0 and there was they kept doing the ship sales. Here's the model I think I'd be okay with, and I haven't put a lot of thought into this, so don't hang me by it. But they say that there's a concept ship, right? They announce it, they put it on sale, okay? Mornstar, don't get me started, man. I'm going to come back to that comment. The ship goes on concept sale, let's say July 6th, okay? People can buy it there and then. Cool. You got a ship. Sure, it doesn't really set you apart from other people other than the fact that you get insurance along with it. Let's say 6 months by default. The ship gets into the game in 2 quarters. You can indeed lose that ship, but not permanently. Insurance makes sure you can get it back quickly, but if not, then you get it back the same exact time as everybody else, right? So there's your perk for buying the concept ship. Good job, you supported the game, thank you. Everybody can buy it in game as soon as it drops. And they only do it for ships below 100 meters. I think that's what I would be okay with. Maybe 70 meters, I don't know, but I think there's some wiggle room for them to keep doing ship sales as long as when the ship comes out, it's available to everybody and there is no special perk to getting that ship for real money other than maybe the added insurance. But yeah, I think they should deliver ships that quickly. That's my opinion. Now, back to that comment. Mornstar came in here and without saying anything else that has to do with what we're actually talking about today, said Master Modes is dragging the game down. I got a bone to pick with you folks, okay? I just had a podcast with Avenger 1. Had him on the show, just like we did back in April before Master Modes came out. I had him on with Yogi. I had him on today to talk about this problem we have with people who just spam their displeasure with Master Modes everywhere. We talked about tons of different topics, but I am so sick of that being basically just spam at this point. Like there's no constructive part of a message like that. And I'll tell you this, in the very podcast, Avenger 1 did say Master Modes is not the problem. Master Modes does not need to go away. He agrees with that. So I implore all of you on Monday when it comes live, or when it comes out, thank you everybody who came and joined us live. Appreciate you. Go watch the episode. Go listen to our talk. We have a good constructive talk about what is Master Modes, why do people find it annoying, how can it be fixed, and how can it also just move along with the development of the game, just like every other part of the game, from cargo to UI to AI, to armistice zones, to the economy, to the flight model. Everything needs to change. Everything needs to iterate. That's the point. We don't need to continue to just say, this ruined the game. Stop it. Stop it. Now, that being said, we're talking today about ships and MFDs, specifically more wide-ranging UI. I've actually got a Star Citizen live here from 5 years ago, talking about UI. I've got an Inside Star Citizen where they actually go into the MFD rework that they were planning back at that time. and we get to compare it to, I guess, now today, what they actually did do. No, you cannot ban them for stating that. People are allowed to come in and say that stuff. I will just deem it annoying. And most importantly, we'll be looking at the Zeus. I'm looking forward to looking at the Zeus. I'm still going to be a C1 guy. Even after this episode, I will probably mainline my C1 because at the end of the day, the Zeus is a bigger ship that's more to take care of, and I don't need to be on the line for all the components and stuff in that ship. But yeah, we will definitely be looking at the Zeus hardcore today and what they've talked about. I think about a couple monthly reports throughout the week too. And I know some of you saw this on Twitter. I posted my sources for an upcoming video, and I asked everybody what they thought that video was. I've got a script here. I'm not going to show you the whole thing because I know somebody's going to pause it and capture it all. But I've got a script here about the Zeus MK2, how it was made, all that stuff, and also how other ships are made. And I've got all my sources that I used for this video. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot that goes into the ship production pipeline. And I'm excited to release this video. I'm hoping I can get it out for you guys tomorrow. It's just basically a look at how a ship goes from the design brief all the way to being in-game from Star Citizen's perspective. And I think it's got some evergreen potential. It's hard to release evergreen Star Citizen videos. I kid you not. People move on very quickly, but I think that knowing how the ships are made in this game can add a level of appreciation for them because it's a lot of work. People keep using the phrase master modes. What they really want is just the ship to be a little faster in SCM. Patch, my friend, you nailed it. You weren't even watching the podcast, I don't think, and you nailed it. Good job. Yeah, that's kind of the point we came to. More people are playing now with master modes, and they're on point for money raised this year, so the master modes are bad. People are the minority. I do think they are the minority. I'm not so sure about more people playing, but I don't think the people playing the game is that dependent on the flight model. I think it's more dependent on what features are coming out at the time. Master modes, thank you, Echo. Master modes is not dragging this game down, you just want your combat ship to be a little more maneuverable. Is it a bigger ship though than the C1? No, but it's got more going on for sure. Toes. Might agree with you while talking to you, but his recent video seems to disagree. We'll see. We'll see. Give it a little bit of a listen and see what comes of it. It's hard to put a video out and then also disagree with yourself on a podcast. Those get brought up quite often. So if that is the case, I'm sure that will be something that people bring up. Drazen, thank you for the sub, dude. 46 months. Fun fact, Drazen helped start the podcast. He was the first guest on the podcast. And I was just looking at our first few episodes, and the E3 episodes we did, one of them still has the least amount of listens out of any episode we've ever published. I think it's like 56 views. But I miss our talks about general gaming, dude. We gotta chat it up sometime. Jambo Tech, good to see you. Welcome in. Daft Digit, hello. Not as wide as it, but I think it's longer. It is longer, yeah, but not as wide, nor is it as tall. It's not as tall as the C1. Can you believe that? The C1 is taller than the Zeus? It's weird. 4-year anniversary soon, dude. Just in time for Thanksgiving, bruh. You gonna be in Georgia this year? Anybody in the garden gonna be in Georgia during Thanksgiving? Come swing by, say what's up. Has Spectrum banned master modes as a topic? A couple of days ago, 90% of threads were master modes related, but today you saw 0. I don't know. I am not in any way involved in Spectrum or its moderation thereof. You'll have to ask one of those people. Ian, you live in Georgia? We usually swing by there for Thanksgiving. We gotta plan a Thanksgiving master. God. Look at how much it just drills into your brain. We gotta plan a Thanksgiving bar citizen in Georgia. What's the third variant of the Zeus? That is the bounty hunting version. No, not the country of Georgia, my friend. The state. I know I'm close to the country of Georgia, but I don't think they celebrate Thanksgiving. What's it supposed to do? The Zeus, I believe it's the MR, is meant for multi-crew bounty hunting, essentially. You go and you pick some folks up, you throw them in the brig, and let's see, you've got 2 pods here where you can throw people in the brig. You got an armory here, so basically you're doing what they did in Star Wars Episode 2, when Anakin and Obi-Wan went into the bar and they had to get some folks. They kind of missed out on that shape-shifting bounty hunter, but like, you go into a city, you grab a couple people, you throw them in the bin. And then you scoot on your way and turn them in. What is the 4th variant? The ST? The Zeus Space Tomato? Zeus Status. I don't know. Status, honestly, sounds kind of like a luxury hauler. But maybe it's just not happening. May or may not be happening. Who knows? But Status definitely calls to some luxury stuff, in my opinion. Yeah, the CL has an amazing interior. But enough of me talking about it. Let's get to it. Like I said, today is a little bit of a combo run because they've split Inside Star Citizen into 324.2, Zeus, and MFDs. So the Zeus, which was coming out in 4.0, which has probably been ready since last month. Maybe it's, just hitting its flight ready status right now. Big video coming out tomorrow about that, by the way. Actually, for anybody who's watching this on YouTube, that big video is probably already out. So check that out on the main channel. But really, it's talking about how ships are made. And the Zeus is at the end of its pipeline. It's taken about a year. And we're about to do a whole little review in Inside Star Citizen about it and see what they have to say about it on terms of details. I will be deciding whether or not it becomes my daily driver. Spoiler alert, it won't. But we'll also be looking at MFDs and doing a little bit of a deep dive into the history of MFDs, what they've been saying about it, as well as what they were showing us just a few years ago on them. So thank you for joining me live in the stream, folks. Thanks for watching. If you're on the YouTube video afterward, appreciate you. Let's jump into this and see what they have to say about our boy Zeusy Magoosey.
Last year's CitizenCon, the RSI Zeus is steadily working its way through the ship pipeline to its intended release. And on this week's show, we'll take a look at 2 of its variants, as well as the new MFD rework that you've seen glimpses of here and there. It's a multifunctional show. Let's get to it.
The RSI Zeus Mark II is a reimagining of the original RSI Zeus. The Zeus was the first mass-made human exploration ship that was capable of doing quantum travel.
We didn't want to just make the Zeus again. We wanted to kind of pay homage to what made the Zeus important, what made it iconic back then. We wanted to kind of give that an update.
Okay. So on the podcast I just with Avenger 1, he was talking about how they were showing the ship flying super fast over the city. And I see what he means. This is absurd speed to show it at. And why do they do that? Like, I know it's to make the ship look cool, but it definitely gives you the idea that, like, you can actually fly that fast in atmosphere, and you absolutely cannot. That is so fast.
And we wanted to kind of pay homage to what made the Zeus important, what made it iconic back then. We wanted to kind of give that an update and
dude, that's insane. If you could fly this fast, you could clear Area 18 in like 5 to 10 seconds.
To modern day visuals and make sure it really feels RSI.
You absolutely cannot fly. No, there's no way that you can fly over Area 18 at this speed. No freaking way. Show me a video of that. I cannot believe that. That's insane.
Zeus again. We wanted to kind of pay homage to what made the Zeus important, what made it iconic back then. We wanted to kind of give that an update and kind of bring it up to modern day visuals and you know, make sure it really feels RSI.
It's RSI style, but we
That looks more believable.
feel it's almost a improvement upon the style. It's sort of an evolution of the style. And so players will appreciate the consistency with other RSI ships, but you can see the technological advancement of RSI.
You may remember the Zeus from our episode in Jump Points a few weeks ago.
Dude,
on
that was
Star
beautiful.
Citizen.
It was very good. And
It
Jared
was
did a
very
really
good,
job.
Jared tells me.
Very good.
The Zeuses are a great stepping stone ship. So you've got your starter ship originally, you've dipped your toes in a few gameplay loops, and you just want to be able to do a bit more. The Zeuses allow you to do that with some friends.
So yeah, it supports up to...
I guess that's kind of true, huh? I couldn't see somebody... And I guess the point isn't to have a smooth progression between the whole manufacturer. But this would just... If you were sticking to just RSI, this would be going from the Aurora to the Zeus. That's a pretty big jump in terms of capability. The Aurora is like, what, 6 SCU, 8 SCU of storage? All the way up to, I guess it's 36 on the regular Zeus. But like 128 SCU on the Zeus CL. That's a big step up.
3 crew members, but you can fly it yourself if you want. And if you've got a buddy, they can man the turrets.
The Zeuses, for me, are probably some of the best looking ships we've ever produced for Star Citizen. I think they really set a new visual standard in both their shape and style. So when we release the Zeus, it comes with both the ES and the CL both together in the same patch. The ES is the exploration-focused variant.
So that's kind of a key detail, is like they're releasing these out they're releasing these out because they're very good at ship schedules. They can get they know the ship producers must be very good, but the ship schedule doesn't rely as much on features, so it's not going to be held back by stuff as much. And that's kind of the same for the MFDs. The MFDs have been confirmed coming in 3.24.2, and they don't depend on server meshing, so they don't need to be shipped in 4.0. So they're moving them up to a patch that is going to be available when 4.0 is not. So we can kind of assume that 4.0 probably won't be here, at least by CitizenCon. Don't know when they're going to do 0.2 though.
Of the Zeus, so it has a modest sized cargo bay, larger hydrogen and quantum fuel tanks, a larger radar, and a more...
How many ships have a physicalized fuel tank? Huh.
Hydrogen and quantum fuel tanks, a larger radar, and a more spacious living area. The CL, the cargo version, maximizes its cargo capacity. It does that by shunting the sort of central bulkhead towards...
Where is that tractor beam? Is it hidden? Because the CL is supposed to have a tractor beam that looks like it extends out, which is actually a really great design for a tractor
the front
beam.
of the ship, so that increases the cargo capacity from 32 to 128 SCU at the expense of just really cramming in.
Holy crap,
living
that's a lot of
quarters to be
storage.
much more compact.
The exterior of the Zeus CS has got that very kind of iconic RSI arrowhead shape.
We tried to stick to what was like the homage that the concept made of the first Zeus.
It keeps the kind of central fuselage.
Dude, look at the freaking detail on the outside of this ship, man. Oh my gosh. This is industry standard, right? Like, what game makes better looking spaceships than this? I don't mean in terms of design, but like detail wise.
You've got this big kind of central mass with these lovely kind of quite fast and aggressive looking wings. And they kind of just help to make it feel quite aggressive and quite sharp, which I think builds on what RSI as a brand are kind of really about.
The big details on the flat surfaces, the mix of materials, I think is very well balanced.
is actually, okay, I'm going to take this opportunity to go back to one of those sources I showed you guys earlier on my script. They actually talk a little bit about this here, I want to say. How they add all of this detail in. See if I can find it. Ooh, where do they mention it? See here?
Has geometries which make it.
Here we go.
Phase.
Yeah, listen to
That's
this.
where the artists tend to do a lot of the heavy lifting on the geometry. So we'll actually start building
Mrs. Tomato's back.
very close to final geometry. We'll start adding bevels, or as Max uses call chamfers, all over the ship in order to use custom normals on our ships, which make it look as though it's higher geometry than it actually is. Custom normals is a technique that we use. Essentially, we call it custom normals, but the geometry that we have, each vertices on the surface, has a direction which determines how the light bounces off the surface. So typically, there's a technique called subdivision modeling where you will take a surface and an edge, and you will sort of reinforce that edge by adding multiple loops to either side of where you want the light to bend. And that will give you sort of a nice flat surface on one side, and then a crisp little bend, and then a flat surface on the other side. So it looks really smooth. We really can't afford to add that much geometry because it makes everything a lot more expensive to do it with that technique. So what we do is we'll take the vertices, and instead of reinforcing the edges, we'll add a single chamfer, and we will then tell the verts to have their tangents pointing exactly where we want them to go. And that will give us the illusion of having a reinforced edge without actually having a reinforced edge.
There's another part. I might have the wrong source there. Where he talks about parallax occlusion mapping, which plenty of you probably have heard referenced when it comes to windows specifically in these games. Here it is. Listen to this.
So, we have wire textures. We'll go ahead and use palms, which is a parallax occlusion mapping texture. It's basically a decal which makes the surface look like it has a lot more detail geometry-wise than it actually does. And we'll use that in order to add rivets to the surface, cut lines onto the wings as an example, where no actual geometry exists. So it looks far more detailed geometry-wise than it actually is, which makes it more efficient to run an engine. It uses less resources, but it looks great. It ends up looking like there's tons of detail on the ship. And it's actually one of our favorite parts to start working on. Once we get to that stage, it really is about detailing it and sort of bringing the ship to life in terms of the way it looks.
So he's talking here about literally the gray box phase, which is something that we saw over the last couple of over the last year as they were working on the Zeus. And they showed us, they give you some monthly reports where they talk about it's in gray box phase, it's doing all that kind of stuff. That's what he's talking about. So when you see all this detail on the ship, it's really hard to tell which part of this is fake and what is it actually, like, where is there actually a 3D difference in what we're seeing? I think that's it's crazy. A lot of game dev is, like Darth Mullen said, smoke and mirrors. It's about tricking you into believing you're living in a world that's always there when really it's rendering just in front of your eyes. And the same kind of stuff happens when it comes to ships like this. Pretty cool.
The flat surfaces, the mix of materials, I think is very well balanced.
I'm still a massive fan of the underside. Undersides of our ships sometimes get a little bit underlooked or overlooked. But I think the underside, the belly, originally the plan was for it to be kind of completely smooth and completely all one surface, but as we started to work it up, the artists that were working on it were kind of like, oh yeah, can we add a little bit of recesses, can we add a little bit of relief into this shape just to kind of help build on the believability, and I think it was a real success.
So weaponry
I don't think I ever realized that the wings move on this before this episode.
Across all of them, the pilot has access to twin size 4 guns.
Enemy down.
And the side seats have access to the remote turrets.
Remote turrets, are there more than one? I thought there was one turret on the bottom.
Seats
Oh, probably they both can access it.
have access to the remote turrets.
Oh, there it is. Hold on. Dude. There's a top and a bottom turret. Oh, on the bounty version. Okay. Yo. That is so clean. And oh, I wonder how much control you have over how the arm pivots. I think that's a little bit different than the original design, which is fine. You know, concept art is never truly 100%. But yeah, the original design was definitely just sticking out the back, and it looked like it kind of extended or telescoped out. Whereas this one sort of folds out from the back. That is fucking phenomenal. They need to do something like this with so many of the other ships. This solves a huge problem we've had with tractor beams on ships, is that like they are stuck in one place and you're stuck trying to work around that as opposed to being able to move the tractor beam around. I love this. This is cool.
When we look at the difference between the ES and the cargo, with the cargo, we wanted to add a little bit more structure and believability into...
Yeah, it looks like you can move it around a little bit. Dude. I'm psyched for that. Put that on my C1, please.
Between the ES and the cargo, with the cargo, we wanted to add a little bit more structure and believability into the exterior of the ship. This is supposed to carry a lot more weight, so we wanted to kind of bulk up the main structural points. So we've got some large additional bracing down the center. And then the other thing that a cargo...
Makes you wonder if it'll actually have more armor when Maelstrom comes in.
Version is going to require is some additional thrust. So we want to kind of bulk up the main thrusters at the rear that allow you to kind of take off, and those kind of downward pointing thrusters have grown in size, and add to that believability that, you know, this vehicle can lift a bit more weight than the base version.
I don't want just believability either. If it's got extra thrusters on the back, I really hope that emphasizes some VTOL capabilities when they bring in control surfaces. Man, they're loving that.
So if we start at the front of the ship, it's quite a tight space. One of the things that we kind of really realized early on with the vehicle is that we crammed a lot of stuff into the space that we had to play with. So the cockpit is quite tight. You've got a nice kind of three-person cockpit up.
Yo! You can see the missiles from inside the cockpit, dude. Oh my god. I'm sorry, that's a nerd feature, but that's gonna be so cool when you're launching missiles and you can see them drop out from under your feet. That's sick.
Front, and the seating arrangement echoes that kind of arrow shape that we see on the exterior of the ship, and that just helps to make the pilot have the important up front seat, but also just ties everything together a little bit, which is lovely.
Yeah, that looks a ton.
The pilot have the important...
That looks a ton like the Carrack up front there. Same kind of style, but it definitely has that Constellation-looking cockpit arrangement.
Up front seat, but also just ties everything together a little bit, which is lovely. As we go back through the ship, we go into the airlock and the engineering area.
This interior is beautiful.
This area changed quite a bit during the vehicle's development. We actually opened this space up a little bit. We took out one of the bulkheads. One of the things we realized as we kind of got into production was that there was...
You see that fire extinguisher there? These are the, like, there's so many little details, and this is, this ship's essentially launching at its gold standard, right? Every ship is going to need a fire extinguisher in its gold standard update. And you can see all of the little things. There are blue lines here that look like they're denoting some special understanding of that part of the ship, maybe. Or it might just be a design flourish. There's the suit lockers are all labeled. The fire extinguisher is over there on the wall where it needs to be. I don't see any fuses, but I'm sure those are in here somewhere. Engineering module off to the left.
To kind of remove one of those and open that area up a little bit. So we've got this engineering section.
There we go. Yeah, there's the fuse right there.
And also has the ladder exit. So we've got our
ladder exit. Like these are standards that they're going to have to keep updating ships with. It's painful to see, but it's beautiful.
Vehicle. And then as we go back through the corridor section, we have like a bit of a crossroads. So you can either go into the kitchen area, which still has its nice window and looks out and it's beautiful and perfect. Or on the right, we've got the habitation area where we've got 3 beds, toilet, a nice little seating area, lockers, and everything you need really in terms of a hab.
Get out, get out, get out.
And then as we go into the back of the ship, that's really where we get to our larger ship components and our cargo area.
Missing that radar, though. They still don't have the radar component figured out, it looks like.
With the cargo version, the Clipper, there's obviously a lot more space dedicated to cargo compared to the base version.
It might not be the
To
only fire
achieve
extinguisher,
that,
just the
what
one we
have
saw.
to do is adjust some of the kind of like the rear layout of the ships.
We had to rearrange the components so that they're closer up to the doorway, and we had to move the weapon locker from the corridor into the actual cargo holds, so there was a lot of rearranging.
But what that does buy us is enough space to fit the kind of extra cargo in. We've also had to sacrifice some of the kitchen area. In the habitation, you lose the sofa and the nice seating area.
No!
But on the positive, we get much more cargo space, which for kind of a dedicated cargo ship is the most important thing.
Yeah. I mean,
You'll notice that on the floor,
128 SCU, which is like the C1 carries 64. So you're doubling the amount of storage in a ship that is both shorter in height and thinner in width than the C1. Absolutely wild. That's crazy. There's definitely got to be some drawbacks to having a ship like this compared to a C1.
there'll be blue trimming exactly where the player can place cargo. It'll be a lot easier for the player to know where you can access the components versus where you can place cargo on the sides.
Imagine all of the different ships that need updates like that as well. Little updates like that, that kind of quality of life updates to ships that have to go back and get updated now.
This has been a great first full ship from concept to release for the Montreal vehicle team.
This is one ship that took an entire year to build. Like, the amount of work that goes into these ships is insane, both in art and design.
They built on kind of what they'd learned with the cutters and really just done a fantastic job in taking what was the original vision of the ship and really delivering it in something that I think it looks great, it should play great, and I think they just did a fantastic job across the board.
To me, the final product shows there's nothing in any other game that can come close to the level of detail, the amount of thought that got put into every button, every component bay, everything, is in its place.
So the Zeus is another great addition to the fleet of ships in Star Citizen, and being RSI, it obviously has that special touch, sharing the name with our company and founder. And we are excited to see this ship set foot in the verse and push along the RSI style ahead of a big year for RSI ships.
Ships don't set foot, John, they fly.
Solid. It looks good. I think the control surfaces and probably the amount of maintenance you have to do on something like this will make it a little bit more work than the C1, but honestly, it's a great look. I think the Reclaimer will probably need a decent rework, with quite a few of the features it's bringing in. Okay, so now we've got MFDs here, and I've got a couple of things to look at in MFDs before we jump deep into that. First is this is the initial MFD rework we first saw, and actually the only look, I think, at the MFD rework that we ever saw back in the day. But here's a quick look at what they were planning for Aegis back then and where it went now. You can also see the HUD that they were planning. We saw this briefly at CitizenCon 2022.
So where shall I start? Tell you what, I'll begin at the beginning. So we decided that the UI in the game is okay, but we really want to kind of up the quality bar on it.
Aegis Combat Assist activated.
We have a fairly comprehensive list of what we needed to be displayed on the HUD. What's there in game at the moment doesn't cover all of that.
There were two major pushes towards getting the Aegis style right. The first of those...
So notice they're talking a lot about Aegis style. That was like where they wanted to start because the Aegis Gladius is the main ship in Squadron 42. It's what they needed to do first.
Kind of focused on the look mainly. So there's a lot of design considerations.
So there's your Aegis MFD from 4 years ago. It looks a lot better with more colors, but from what I've seen, the ones that they actually got into the game look even better than this concept, which is something I quite enjoy about Star Citizen at times.
example. We want to make sure that everything's got a decent amount of space. Legibility is a big thing. If you've got text in there, it needs to be big enough to see. We also try and make similar things look similar. So if you have a button, it needs to look like a button. Also, we want to avoid things like overlaps. You don't want things to be on top of each other. And in general, with the new HUD as well, what we're trying to do is keep the flight information on the left and save the right-hand side for kind of mode-specific stuff.
So you can see that they're also at that point getting into the idea of casting your MFDs into your helmet. And yeah, it's a prettier look than what we have, but it's not quite everything they wanted it to be. Now I have a couple sound bites here from what they were talking about when it came to MFD reworks back in 2021, I think it was 2019. So even earlier on, I think they talk about the UI specific stuff or the manufacturer specific stuff here. Let's see.
The HUD and the MFDs and the FPS visor at the moment. So a lot of those kind of questions, it's great to bring up the reasoning now, and then we can start to incorporate that into these things as we move forwards.
Yeah, I know a lot of discussion about this for a while has been either addressing issues like the glare, that they want to change the color or something because whatever they're flying against matches the color and it's going to be difficult to read. Sometimes people just like different colors, like people just prefer a different orientation, or sometimes it's an actual visual acuity thing. Like some people just have difficulty seeing certain colors on the spectrum, and if you happen to be if you happen to have that weakness right there where the UI is, it can be difficult to read. So I know folks have been asking for the ability to adjust certain elements of UI for some time. So
yeah, sure.
But I know that's something we're definitely considering, something we've talked about for a while. And, but like you said, it's really important to get the building blocks and to make it as functional as possible before we start introducing customizable elements, if we ever do.
Well, I mean, the thing with building blocks, so basically building blocks is is like our internal term for the UI tech. So the
God, you guys remember all the talk about building blocks? Like, it's been a while that they've been talking about building blocks, and a lot of the stuff they brought in even after building blocks was in a place where they could use it still wasn't the best UI. I think one of the more interesting UIs they released on building blocks was the refueling UI on the Starfarer, and even then it's still pretty basic compared to what we've seen with the MFDs now. So you can tell that they've definitely gotten a team together to actually make UI properly good, like something you would expect from a release game, as opposed to just like some kind of alpha test UIs. And that's my favorite part about what we've been seeing recently.
Tool that we use to develop UIs, the new one, not the old one. So like a lot of it is allowing for like flexible layouts, or being able to easily reflow elements so they can rearrange themselves very easily relative to each other. And it opens up so much more because we can make the UI so much more dynamic and responsive and flexible, whereas before it's just kind of, if we were to think about like maybe layout customization, or if we had like a grid system, something you can kind of plug into and rearrange on, then it makes it so much easier than before, because everything before was just hardwired. It was very static in nature. But if we have a fully data-driven and flexible system, it kind of opens that up. Now that we can start asking like what makes sense for customization. Like previously, it was just like, yeah, we could do colors, but like it'd be very complicated to do, resizing and things like that. When you have static, a very statically authored UI. So implementation-wise, it's like much easier now. So it's just basically like, what are the kind of the fundamental issues? Like, we mentioned things about the bright, like, how readable things are against, bright backgrounds, and, you want to change colors. But, we'll kind of allude to this later on, I think. But, there might be a better solution for that. That's right. Not goes beyond UI.
Yeah,
I think it's good to go back and watch this kind of stuff and listen to them talk about where they want to go with these things, because you can really you can just see so much of a difference between the way they communicate on the UI now, which we'll see in ISC in a second, versus what they were saying back then. Like, it sucks to say, okay? Hindsight is 2020, and I am disappointed to say it. But even at this time, 2019, 2020, 2021, we were still in such an alpha phase compared to where we are now. The things that we were getting were so placeholder. And I think most of 3.x updates are kind of indicative of that. From the UI to the interaction system to the ships we were getting to the flight model itself, a lot of stuff was very placeholder. And we're just now starting to see the systems they were working on back then create the assets that could be used for a real game.
Into the pilot seat. I know. Are there intentions to add the ability to save custom MFD configuration presets for individual players' preferences?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's got to persist at some point. It's just the issue is now is just it doesn't persist.
Right.
So, I will say in our new UI tech, the UI will be what we call stateless. So it won't store anything. It won't store any state about itself. It takes everything from like an entity or what's on the server. So basically, when we go to develop the MFD or implement the new design that we're working on, by that point, hopefully we'll be able to persist. Like, as you enter and exit the seat, you'll see the same screens that you were on before, even if.
Yeah. So as Fate said, they do persist now, which was something that was added in. I think it was 3.18, was it? But clearly they got that done well before they got the new MFDs done. But this is like, man, when you listen to people criticize the fact that these people talked about stuff but never delivered it, that's part of why I'm so excited about 2024, because it feels like we're finally getting that stuff delivered that they talked about all the way back in 2019 or 2020 or 2017 or something. Not all of it. There's still plenty of stuff they need to deliver. But a lot of that stuff is actually becoming a reality now, which is pretty nice. It feels small in the grand scheme of things, but it's a big deal that they're finally looping back around and getting this stuff into the game, at least for me.
If you've tabbed over or you've shifted things around. So it's definitely something we want to.
Yeah.
All right, we got, I think, another thing here. Let's listen to what it is.
Out there. He's looking through the designs we've already got, like what's in the game now, and also working very closely with the vehicles team, talking to them, what do you want to show on these screens, and kind of trying to plan out generally what's in all the MFDs, and then going and redesigning each screen to kind of get the best out of it. So we're at that stage now, and then as Zane's team progresses the UI tech, eventually we'll get to a point where the screens are redesigned, the tech's ready, and then we'll start to put those in the game.
I was just Googling Mark Colloran now. Cargo UI. Let's talk about cargo UI. Right now.
All right. So that's MFD stuff. But let's listen to what they actually have to say about it in this new episode, because I can already tell it's looking pretty good here. We got freaking colors. We got more colors than one. Good morning, Jordak. Wobbly, Decent. Welcome in. Eliswin. You guys are just, I see. Y'all are saying hi to the people who are coming in saying morning. I get you. Whoa.
The MFDs and the ship HUD and the PU, it's old. And the actual UI itself is very small. One color, they're all in one color. Text is too small.
Hey, yeah,
it's
one color,
very
dude.
Samey.
Agreed. Boomer, thank you so much for the super chat. Hope you're feeling better, keeping up the awesome work. Thank you. Still clearing my throat, getting the snifflies, but me and Mrs. Tomato are improving day by day.
Right? It has a bunch of stuff on it that you don't really use.
Not very new user friendly.
Any user friendly?
Yeah. Any user friendly.
It was good for its time. It did the job. It got us where we are today.
But it's time for something new, and that's what we're going to talk about.
The reason why we're doing this now is because we had a lot of time during the development of Squadron.
It's way more readable.
To create an expandable and a more robust system for MFDs.
We have a bunch of super nice MFDs ready for Squadron, and now we're moving them over to Star Citizen.
It's also really good to bring it over now because we've got the new resource network system, so we need to have the MFDs here to support that new game.
Dude, I love the differences between the manufacturers are great. Does my wife play the game? She does a little bit. She hasn't gotten to play too much yet on her own. But we definitely have gotten to she's gotten into the game quite a bit. She's planning on playing it. Once exploration becomes more of a thing, I think is what she's waiting for.
Systems, so we need to have the MFDs.
Yeah, I'm liking these layouts. What I hope that we really get with these MFDs is an easy key binding to focus on each one. I loved that about Elite Dangerous. You could hit a button and it would bring you straight into the MFD, so you could basically use it like a screen. Yeah, diagnostics. This is great. This is going to be huge because the wear and tear is going to be... Oh, God, wear and tear is going to be fun to see how people take that. You got power management, self-status, scanning. Scanning!
Here to support that new gameplay. Initial release, there'll be 5 visual styles to the MFDs and the HUDs.
There's Aegis.
Oh, and I guess this is our power triangle now. Yeah, power management. So we're gone are the days of the power triangle, thank God. I think that was a little bit of a weird way to do it for binary key input. This looks like it'll be more usable.
There'll be 5 visual styles to the MFDs and the HUDs.
There's Aegis.
It's very militaristic and it's very sleek.
It's also not, it's based on the power your ship has available instead of just like an arbitrary triangle. Like these aren't even, I wonder if they're getting rid of capacitors. Have they said anything about that? Because this isn't even a capacitor layout anymore. This is like, you've got this much power. This is essentially an engineering screen. Huh.
Anvil is great. I love the green color of Anvil. It feels a lot more like an F-16
Dude,
cockpit.
I'm sorry I keep pausing. This is so great. I'm so excited for this. This looks so much better. You got emissions readouts up here, so you can change your emissions probably based on your power management. Shows you your total power that you have to allocate. Oh, man. Yeah, and it does reflect more of what you would find in other games, so it's a little more new player friendly. Oh yeah, it'll allow for battery power as well. That's an interesting point. Yeah, this is the Terrapin. I don't think it's a reworked cockpit. This is how it looks already. Hexagonal stuff and all that jazz.
Is great. I love the green color of Anvil. It feels a lot more like an F-16 cockpit. Drake is my...
They've also redone the HUDs. So that's another thing that we were looking at way back in the day. They were doing a lot of HUD UI work and showing us what they wanted to do for each ship's manufacturer. They only showed us Aegis and Drake, I believe. But let me see if I can find, yeah. So here were the Drake concepts compared to what we got. So it still has that, it's kind of like an analog sort of feel. Like, I love the radar in this concept. That looks so cool. But this is probably a little bit easier to read. Yeah, I think this was the Buccaneer. And obviously much more readable. The HUD itself, you know, they were going for a very in-your-face HUD back then. And they've become a lot more streamlined, a lot more fitting of the actual display and geometrics of the ship that you're in. So I think this one is a little bit better because it's out of your way. It lets you see more of what you're flying towards. But ultimately, you can see how they're all a little bit similar. You know, it's mainly the colors that are different and a little bit of the shaping. So like, you see more of like a angular kind of high definition shape here, whereas this is a little more like flat and boxy. I like it. I like that it's just the little bits that are different. Since they only ported these 5 manufacturers. Oh, did they only do 5 so far? Interesting. Remember how Consolidated has the orange MFD? Seems that Drake stole that from them. Drake's very orangey, though. They've... Actually, I guess the example I showed you was not orange, huh? They were trying out different colors. Yeah, so I guess they were figuring them out over time.
Feels a lot more like an F-16 cockpit. Drake is my favorite. It's retro.
Okay, that radar still looks great on Drake.
Blade Runner and CRTs.
Here's Argo.
It really feels like a piece of industrial equipment, which is what the brand is going for.
Argo is also the 2D.
And there's the generic style that will support all the other ship manufacturers for the time being.
Okay, I see. So they didn't get to all the manufacturers. Gotcha. That's interesting, though, that some of these manufacturers have their sort of holographic maps.
More like an F-16 cockpit.
Whereas other ones have it on the layout like this. I bet Origin's going to be real nice looking.
Drake is my favorite. It's retro.
Yeah, the generic one still looks great.
CRTs.
Here's Argo.
It really feels like a piece of industrial equipment, which is what the brand is going for.
And there's the generic style that will support all the other ship manufacturers for the time being. For this release, the MFDs are getting 9 different views. Oh, how many is that even?
I'm surprised RSI didn't get its own so far.
Well, let's go through it.
We'll start with self-status. Self-status includes all of the critical information about your ship dependent on your current operator mode. So you'll have your ammo numbers in guns mode, you'll have your missile arming in missile mode, and your fuel readouts in quantum mode. There's also a unique version for turrets as well.
Nice.
We have taken away a lot of, well, faff.
I love a turret MFD. That's good. Oh. Hold up. Is the turret MFD being cast to the visor in this shot? Was that true in any of the other shots? It is here. Self-status is up here. See, they're not even mentioning that. That's such a big deal when you're going to be able to cast the MFD to your helmet HUD so that you don't have to look down to get all this information.
And your fuel readouts in quantum mode.
They go through it.
There's also a unique version for turrets as well.
We have taken away a lot of, well, faff from there. So this is simpler than before.
Weapons active. It's more condensed and it links into the new systems that have been developed in terms of vehicle features. For example, it shows your updated gimbal modes, and it also shows your current weapon group, which is a new thing as well. Target status is the same thing, but it gives you the information about the target that you have currently selected.
It's mostly going to be, for a lot of players, the ship holo. You're going to want to see, am I dealing some damage or not? You will also have the emissions, so you know what missile to use against them.
Hey, but it shows you the faction of the ship you're shooting at. These are like the little things that will matter someday. Someday. Yeah, those look like they have some form of focus mode if they're not doing that manually.
Against them. And you will see their names, so you know that you're not shooting the wrong person.
Because he's not doing any of this on the screen. This is all key binding work he's doing to change this stuff.
To use against them, and you will see their names.
So he's changing modes, I think.
Know that you're not shooting the wrong person.
It's not as much information because obviously if you want to see how much ammo they've got, you've got to scan them. But it will show you their health, it will show you their faction, it will show you their velocity. Weapon config is entirely new. It links into the new weapon grouping system, so it will list out every single weapon on your ship. The ammo that you have, they'll light up if they're selected, and also it allows you to assign them to one of 4 custom groups, so you can have any combination of weapons that you want firing at the same time, and it makes it easy to see which group of weapons you're firing.
And if you just...
Yeah, they're using some sort of... There's a WASD keybind now for switching MFDs. Okay, so that's going to start probably working with this system. Yeah, dude, this is nice. This is real game kind of stuff. Like this is one of those things that once it's in game, people are going to be like, wait, you couldn't do this for how long?
Don't assign one of those groups if you feel like, well, 4's too many. I just use 2 anyway. Well, you can just assign to 2 of them and you'll be fine.
This will be valuable so the player can, in combat, switch between different modes depending on kind of distance and what kind of weapons they want to use.
On a day-to-day,
Whoa, a hawk.
you might be tracking down a particular target. It is a subject of a mission, and you know that a certain weapon is going to be more effective against them than another, or a certain weapon combination is going to be more effective. You can stick them all in one group and have quick access to that. Shields is pretty much the same as what it was. You can control each of your shield faces if you have 4 shield faces. If you have 1, you can control the whole thing. And it gives you a reset button, so you can set it all back to default, and also you can see your total shield usage out of the maximum.
For the time being, this is going to be the same thing that you're already used to.
And along with that are scanning and communications. Scanning's been moved from the HUD to an MFD state. For new screens, the biggest one is MFD state.
Info, parts, and cargo. Interesting. Wonder if the cargo hidden components work with that. I guess they're not really changing scanning. It's just putting it on the MFD. Can't wait for a scanning update, man.
For new screens, the biggest one is power management. It's a simplified version of what you'll find on an engineering terminal, but it's for sort of daily use for the pilot.
It's using the full power of the resource network system, and it gives it to you right there in the pilot seat, so you can do the full assignments as you like them if you're flying solo. This is also where you will see your emissions, so if you're flying solo. You can do the full assignments as you like them if you're flying solo.
What do you guys think that red circle means that pops up there? Underpowered shields, maybe? I'm talking about... you can barely... Hold on. Can't really see it that well. So right here, it appears when he drops the power off of his shields.
They're in the pilot seat, so you can do the full assignment.
So he's got his shields all the way powered here. Nothing up here. Watch when he drops this, a little red circle appears right here.
As you like them, if you're flying solo.
What do you think that is? Maybe underpowered, possibly. I don't know. That's interesting.
This is also where you will see your emissions. So if
Overcharge.
you're doing anything stealthy, you go into power management, you set your settings to low, and you will see your emissions adjust accordingly.
You can turn on and off different systems in the ship. You can apply different levels of power to each system. You can see your total output, how much you're using, and you can also see different status readouts for those systems. So if something is run out of power or it's offline, it will also represent that on the power management MFD.
Engines off.
Along with that is the diagnostics view.
The diagnostics view is where you go to
okay.
Check in on your
This looks like the same symbol, kind of.
ship. If something's not feeling right, well, maybe check diagnostics.
It will show you the wear that that component has taken, as well as its current health and its status, whether it has any errors, and there'll be a summary at the top of the screen that shows you how many of your components have errors.
All right, you single seat pilots. How you feeling about engineering? If this is how applied it is for somebody who is flying just, a single ship with a single seat on their own, because that's one thing I think a lot of people are worried about when it comes to engineering is it'll be a big deal when it comes to multi-crew ships, but how's it going to be for you guys in your Gladius or your Cutter or something? This doesn't look too bad. It looks like it's mainly focused around that one screen. I don't know. Feels like a more in-depth version of something you might see in Squadrons, like Star Wars Squadrons or Starfield. Yeah, I like this a lot more than the power triangle. And it looks like this is a lot easier to assign keys. Like power triangle was weird because you'd press the key and it would move in this 3D area, kind of this I guess it's more of a 2-dimension of movement area. This is much easier because it's all just binary input, basically. Can't say until you fly with it. That's fair. Anyone have any idea when they will re-implement landing radar? Adam Kelly, I hope we get a UI Star Citizen Live soon so we can ask that. Imagine you're in a fighter and you slowly start to lose parts by parts and you got to disengage. Yeah, dude, this is great. And as far as improving the overall experience of flying the ship goes, I feel like the MFDs are one of the biggest improvements they could have made. Because as MFDs are right now, I don't know about you guys, but I almost never use them. If there's anything that I need to do that could be on an MFD, I'm generally doing it from my my Mobiglass. I hope that we get the ability to ask for repair and refuel services here. I'm glad that we now have the ability to change our key bindings and control our weapons groups here. Like, it looks more usable, and I might actually consider my key bindings when it comes to this stuff. As far as landing radar goes, he's talking about... I can look it up real quick. 2.6 landing radar. It looked like this. It is basically a 3D readout of your ship and the area around it. You can kind of see here. But they need to redo it. They're going to do it so that it actually includes a full 3D layout of what's around your ship, and you can use it more than just in landing, but we haven't heard much about it in a little while. I think power triangle as a concept is great, but it adds interesting decision making, but it has to be implemented correctly. I mean, this feels like a better implementation to me. The landing radar was taken out in 3.0 because they changed up the UI stuff. Feel like with the recent ship balancing, a small section of people forget that engineering is an equalizer. Fire occurrence between Drake and Origin. Shots fired. No pun intended.
Missions adjust.
What's up, Luna Maria?
You can turn on and off different systems in the ship. You can apply different levels of power to each system. You can see your total output, how much you're using, and you can also see different status readouts for those systems. So if something has run out of power or it's offline, it will also represent that on the power management MFD.
Engines off.
Along with that is the diagnostics view.
The diagnostics view is where you go to check in on your ship. If something's not
It's just a
feeling right,
massive quality of life improvement.
check diagnostics.
It will show you the wear that component has taken, as well as its current health and its status, whether it has any errors, and there'll be a summary at the top of the screen that shows you how many of your components have errors. And last, what I'm really excited about is the configuration screen. It takes a lot of the settings that were hidden away in the options menu or just in the back end and puts them right there for you to.
Dude. Oh, one less reason to go into the pause menu and that awful, horrible key bindings menu. This is a huge plus. Yeah, that's good stuff.
To toggle in-world on your MFD screen instantly.
The configuration view is great. You can now turn off unwanted UI if you really wish to. You can turn off the cast, which is my favorite part. If you have screens on the top left and top right of your screen, then you can turn off those casts now to clear the UI a little bit.
So this configuration screen allows you to configure a few aspects of some different MFD states, as well as what goes on your HUD and how that looks.
You can finally control what goes on our HUD?
We can finally control what goes on our HUD, yeah. So let's talk about the HUD. Using the configuration screen, you can choose whether or not you're showing your MFD casts, which are simplified and more tactile versions of the self-status and target status screen.
Functionality.
Okay, so it's not, you can't add any MFD up there. It sounds like it's two specific screens that'll go up there.
No, already. They're
definitely the ones that you would need to use in a very quick like that. You don't really need power management to be up in your face like that most of the time.
You have your afterburner, you have your annunciators, and you have different indicators.
They show critical information when you can't look at your
different indicators.
Still having a hard time reading that HUD up against a white planet like that. I think that's actually a moon, Lyria. Like, I'm loving it. I'm loving the HUDs, but we still have some readability issues here, and hopefully they can get that figured out before this goes live. But it sounds like it'll be live within the next month, so we'll see.
They show critical information when you can't look at your dashboard in front of you. So if you're in a fighter and you're looking up in the sky, you can still see that, as well as allowing you to still see that information when you're in precision targeting mode.
We've decided to clear up all of the nonsense we have in the middle and kind of make it out of the way of the middle of the screen. So
what took so long, Joe?
I'm sorry. It wasn't.
This is this different from how precision mode works right now? Precision mode works at the moment by gimbaling the guns to shoot where you're aiming, right? This looks more like a lag pip on precision mode, and we can't do that at the moment, can we? You can have a lab pip active for it? Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah, precision mode works.
What took so long, Joe?
I'm sorry. It wasn't me. Oh, God.
We've also done a little bit of work making the radar and the HUD feel more diegetic and making it look like it actually exists in the cockpit with grounding effects and emission rate origin points as well.
It all just feels so much better. It feels real. So with this new ship and vehicle HUD, it's just going to be a clearer experience overall. It's going to be clearer in the sense that you don't have stuff in your face all the time. It's going to be clearer in the sense that you can actually read the UI. So I think you'll be very happy with it. It's going to be such a nice thing to just be out in space and be able to see space, right?
God, I love the squadron music.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that the Zeus is the first ship made by the newly established Montreal vehicle team. That the MFD rework is an exciting and easily usable and customizable upgrade to what we've had before. And that it plugs nicely into the upcoming resource network and engineering work scheduled for Alpha 4.0, which will, of course, we'll be showcasing next week. For Inside Star Citizen 4.0. Which will into the upcoming resource network and engineering work scheduled for Alpha 4.0, which will, of course, we'll be showcasing next week. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the people and process of game development with you, and we'll see you all here next week.
Okay, so engineering next week, that's solid. What about the altimeter? Where is it? It is, yeah, wait, it is gone from the HUD. No?
Solo. This is also where you will see your emissions. So if you're doing anything stealthy, you go into power management, you set your settings to low, and you will see your emissions adjust accordingly.
You can turn on and off different systems in the ship. You can apply different levels of power to each system.
Altimeter is in the actual HUD right here, right? Is that what I'm seeing?
You can see your total output, how much you're using, and you can also see different status readouts for those systems. So if something is run out of power or it's offline, it will also represent that on the power management MFD.
Oh,
so
wait, I just realized that the freaking Drake, the Drake speed indicator is an actual physical thing instead of hologram. Wait, Hold on, I thought it was up above the MFDs. What am I missing here?
Ran out of power or it's offline, it will also represent that on the power management MFD.
Engines off.
Along with that is the diagnostics view.
The diagnostics view is where you go to check in on your ship. If something's not...
That component is a summary at the top of the screen.
Yeah, I'm seeing the altimeter just normal on here. What's the problem? Being changed on how it functions? It still looks like it's wrong. 2 kilometers above the ground, but you're landed. Yeah, me and Mrs. Tomato were just laying in bed the other night, and I just randomly pulled up the Squadron 42 trailer just to hear the bagpipes. It'd be like that. Oh, I haven't even been looking at the skybox, to be honest.
That shows you how many of your components have errors. And last, what I'm really excited about is the configuration screen. It takes a lot of the settings that were hidden away in the options menu or just in the back end and puts them right there for you to toggle in-world on your MFD screen instantly.
The configuration view is great. You can now turn off unwanted UI if you really wish to. You can turn off the cast, which is...
God, that is beautiful. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Wait, is the I'm going to show my idiocracy here. Is the altimeter normally show in space? Have I been missing that? Dude, we don't really need that, right? Hey, Smithy Boy, thank you for the bits. Said, I'm quite new here and just wanted to say I'd share the love. I have my first ever full-time job and I'm happy so. I thought I'd share the love of this amazing Friday and make everyone happy. Yo, thank you for the bits. Congratulations on the first time full-time job. No, there is no altimeter in space. Okay. So what is the change that people are not happy about or are happy about? I assume people are annoyed about it.
Cast, which is my favorite part. If you have screens on the top left and top right of your screen, then you can turn off those casts now to clear the UI a little bit.
So this configuration screen allows you to configure a few aspects of some different MFD states, as well as what goes on your HUD and how that looks.
You can finally control what goes on our HUD?
We can finally control what goes on our HUD.
Dude,
yeah.
I love a clean flight screen, though. Like, that'll be great when you can just fly around with literally nothing on your screen, just cruising, and it's immersion. Folks think the cast is the HUD, and it's still difficult to see. Oh, okay. They're making the altimeter bigger. Well, let me make it smaller again, then. All right, so going back to the Zeus, the MFDs are freaking beautiful. I love to see them. Here is what we saw of the Zeus last year at 1 month after this, but last year. This would be white box phase work that they had been doing.
Do you just want to have a look? Shall we? Okay.
All right, so as you guys have seen with the Spirit and with the many ships we've released thus far, our ships can, when they're finished, look absolutely gorgeous. But before any of them get to that point, they have to go through a very specific development process, and this is the first stage in that process. We call this white box. At this point, we've taken the concept, ripped it to shreds, and then reassembled it and plugged it all back together within the editor so that we can get a real good look at what players are going to see when they finally get this game. At this stage, with the Zeus...
This is such a nice looking white box. Could I show you all what white box used to look like when they would be working on it? Oops. Check this out. This is here's white box back in the day.
Model.
Actually, that's not
you
bad.
Can throw that into the game super fast, and working with.
But like that, compared to that, this looks a lot better. They've stepped up that white box, stepped up the white box stuff.
The tech design team, we can start actually
Oh,
adding
it wasn't an
weapons to
engine?
it,
Let me show you what it looks like in engine.
a rudimentary cockpit, and have positions for the animations to work properly. So we can actually go into the game, walk up to this very blocky looking ship, press a button, and then climb into it.
There it is.
And start flying the ship
What a
really
beaut.
early on, within the first week and a half to 2 weeks of production. And this is what we call the white box phase.
For the design side of that, that's mainly just setting
Showcase white box for the CC. The Catacaric? What's the CC? We looking at the Q&A later? Q&A for what? Oh, the Star Citizen Live? No, don't have time for that. I might actually hop in game real quick and take another look at the Spirit now.
Players are going to see when they finally get this game. At this stage, with the Zeus, we've already ripped out all the thrusters, we've ripped out the landing gear, the turret, the seats, the beds, all of the interior spaces, plug those guys back in, and we have what you see here. So again, the beginning of the process. At this point, we're able to jump in, start throwing in cargo, interacting with doors, getting in and out of beds, maybe in and out of toilets, and just getting an overall sense of what it feels like to interact with the vehicle.
And this is all the stuff that they just showed us. All the interior work they just gave us a look at where...
You can either go into the kitchen area, which still has its nice window and looks out and it's beautiful and perfect. Or on the right, we've got the habitation area.
It's
where we've
beautiful
got 3 beds,
and perfect.
Toilet. A nice little seating area.
And it is very
lockers and everything you need really in terms of a hab.
Get out, get out, get out.
And then as we go into the back of the ship, that's really where we get to our larger ship, which still has its nice window and looks out and it's beautiful and perfect. Which still has its nice window and looks out and it's beautiful and perfect.
So you get a good idea of how different these areas are from white box to gray box. Like you can tell what's going on. It's got some details going on, like enough to get an idea of what's supposed to be there, but you could even see like this wall has changed in between the 2 phases. The ceiling is a little bit, I think it looks like it might be a little bit higher, but I can't tell for sure. Just, it's fun to see. This is why I appreciate that they show us all parts of the development of these ships, because then you get a much better idea of how it progresses through this phase. There are some really interesting ships that we've seen at this phase. Here's one of my favorites. We actually, for those who don't know, we got to see... Oh, no, this isn't the right one.
And then set it up.
Yeah, this one. Whoops. We actually saw the Orion in the white box.
Which is also good.
You see how much it changed over time.
Scale it up to fit all that in. Which is also good because in the original scale, it was a bit too small for the final mining ship you would get. So it would be a bit disappointing to get it. Because originally it was only half the length of the Idris. You would like your absolute final, most expensive mining ship to be a thing of like, oh, it's massive and could do loads of stuff. So we've scaled it up pretty much 100% bigger than it was, just to be able to fit all the stuff in and for it to be impressive.
It's very.
I'm sure that the white box is different, or the concept artists send them different stuff, but I have no doubt that CIG themselves, in how much they've improved this process, has gotten just overall better at detailing stuff earlier on in the process than they used to. You can just tell from how the ships turn out.
So that's all arrayed around that ore funnel. So you have the ore funnel in the center, corridors either side of that, and then branching off of that is rooms on top and around.
But this just goes to show how early some of these ships can go into white box and then just not move past that. This is like, this ship's not coming for a while.
So the Orion's currently at white box. So we've basically taken the designer block out and just sort of fleshed out a bit more, just getting the rooms sort of looking what we want them to look like in the final thing. And once that's all been okayed, we'll then move on to grey box and get some sort of finer details and materials and stuff in there.
So we've been through quite a few iterations with design before we settled on this one, and most of the time the limitation was just size. So although it's already a massive ship, there was this limitation of the tunnel running through the center, and it meant that the rooms around the side had to be more like corridor sized.
Yeah, Orion is RSI, but this is going to have to wait for the mining gameplay.
In that respect, so basically making sure that the player can move around and he's got enough space to sort of do what he wants to do. It doesn't take too long to.
It's going to take a ton of work.
The cockpit to the cargo bay or something like that, because you don't want to be running around the entire ship. The white box stage is really sort of interesting and really sort of creative, just because you get the ability to sort of change how the ship feels. So taking the Orion as an example, you can basically, just by changing the angle that the walls are, you can change how the ship feels. So if you wanted it to feel claustrophobic, you can put the walls sort of like in a V shape, because then you've got all the wall like gubbins and stuff on the side feel a lot closer to you. Whereas if the walls are like a pyramid, it feels a lot more open because you've got a lot more sort of ground space.
It's got that panelled sort of look to it, where you've got your sleek, sharp panels, and under that, sandwiched between them, is all the tech. So you've got the ore funnel along, and that's surrounded by tech parts that are open to space, and you can see that. And then on top and underneath, it's sandwiched on with the plates, kind of like the constellation nacelles, that sort of thing, where they're one shape, but they've got all that little greebling in it. And then from the front, you've got that classic RSI trapezoid sort of thing going on.
That's another big boat. Now today I can confirm that the RSI Orion is nearly white box complete, as the team is working in the identify and create additional concept stage before they move into gray box. Soon the dream of shooting massive mining lasers from our ship's faces will be a reality.
It was not. This was 2017, and the Orion is no closer to releasing than it was in that very video. So maybe someday, but not anytime soon. So yeah, this is the Zeus. I'm down for it. I like it. Obviously, I am very big on the Spirit, which was introduced around this time last year. Still my favorite. Absolutely freaking beautiful ship.
Front, we've got a completely fully featured habitation area, suit lockers, weapon lockers, pod beds, everything you're going to need.
I just like the Crusader style more than RSI's. RSI is like a really good utilitarian, like high-tech utilitarian style, but I love the slightly more organic look of Crusader's interiors.
And then right at the cockpit, we've had a two-pilot cockpit, and I think the Crusader engineers have done a fantastic job of putting everything that the pilot needs right at their fingertips. So in the heat of battle, you kind of might just eke out that advantage. Exterior-wise, it's classic Crusader.
Still better looking exterior too.
Recess weapons. We've got our rear-mounted remote turret. And then underneath is all business. We've got the missile racks, and we've got the big bomb bays.
I don't think the C1 has more doors than the Zeus. The Zeus has the rear door, and then
we go into
is it just the rear door in this one?
Area. We took maybe a section. We hit which.
No, it's 3 doors.
And then as we go back through the corridor.
That's
section,
1.
We've got in terms of the back of the ship.
And then
that's
2.
Really where we get to our.
And then you have the 3rd in the back. So it's the same as the C1. Yeah, honestly, that makes sense since the C1 is kind of a more simplified ship. But the Zeus is definitely the ship I would take on longer voyages. It's got a little bit more space to it. Seems like it's made more for a long-term crew. You got, like, the C1 is... Your bed is just right here in the cockpit. Yeah, that's your pilot seat. That's your bed. Here's your suit lockers. The Zeus, you've got your living quarters here, but then you've also got you know, all of your components up here. You've got an extra entrance up here. Just feels like it's a more well put together ship, especially for a group of people. I would say that the Zeus is a better ship for more dangerous places, for sure. Because you also got a turret. The C1 feels more like a ship that I would have in pedestrian or civil areas like Terra or Stanton, maybe. The Zeus is something I would take into Nyx or Pyro, probably. So, will the C1 get front access? Who knows? Who freaking knows? I don't know. It could really use a ladder entrance, though. But yeah, the interior design of the Zeus does look really good. I mean, freaking Montreal, man. They get their hands on something. They really Canada it up, eh?
We've got this engineering section that has the kind of main docking collar and also has the ladder exit. So we've got our kind of 2 front exits on the vehicle. And then as we go back through the corridor section, we have like a bit of a crossroads. So you can either go into the kitchen area, which still has its nice window and looks out and it's beautiful and perfect. Or on the right, we've got the habitation area where we've got 3 beds, toilet, a nice little seating area, lockers, and everything you need really in terms of a hab.
Crusader likes the open air design. They need to, I hope in the Q&A for this ship, they do address why somebody would pick the C1 over the ES.
With the cargo version,
There should be some obvious
there's
choices.
A lot more space dedicated to cargo compared to the base version.
I'm guessing it'll be atmospheric flight mostly, though.
Some of the kind of like the rear layout of the ships.
We had to rearrange the components so that they're closer up to the doorway, and we had to move the weapon locker from the corridor into the actual cargo holds, so there was a lot of rearranging.
I don't know, the more I watch this episode, the more I might want the ES instead. But I can't turn away from my C1. Like I said, it's a beaut. But yeah, that's a look at the ES, the CL, the Zeus series in general, which I can't get over the way they did this freaking tractor beam on the CL. So good. I hope they do this with the other cargo ships too, because folding it away in the back like that was a really good call. But yeah, that's a look at the new Zeus ships and the new MFDs. The MFDs are definitely a good look, because that's not just a ship to buy, that's like an actual solid improvement across the game that I think everybody will benefit from. So thank you for watching if you're watching this deep dive on YouTube. Everybody else though, we will continue. Okay, I'm gonna pause that so it doesn't glitch up my game. You didn't like the concept art for the Zeus, but seeing it this week in ISC, you love it? You're an RSI lover too? Yeah, it'd be like that. I think a lot of times the ships look better in-game than they did in concept. So this ship took about a year. I think a little more than a year from brief to complete, which is where it is now. We could see that by this time, or by the end of last year. Let's see, where was it? They mentioned the Zeus here? I don't think they do. By January of this year, they were saying that the Zeus was continuing to progress through the gray box stage, okay, with some areas moving slightly beyond. See, I think that's part of why people thought that the Polaris was going to come out for Invictus. Certain parts of the ship can make quite a bit of progress pretty early on, unexpectedly. Hey, Sherman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the 5 memberships on YouTube. That's a friend move. I appreciate you. Thanks for the support. Thank you very much. Zeus was already seeing work going beyond gray box in January of this year. So like you can read that and be like, oh, this ship's ready in 5 months. But look at how much longer it took for it to actually get here. Team was currently finishing up focusing on finishing up various areas, including the entrance ladder and engineering, while polishing previous areas to make them match the contemporary RSI style. So there's that new style we talked about, contemporary RSI style. They go into that a little bit on...
Thank you very
in
much.
CitizenCon last year, actually, where they mentioned that there was like a timeline of ships, and even within the companies that are in this timeline, you kind of see that like they release a ship at a certain time versus, you know, depends on where in this timeline they release a ship. So like the Bengal would be way back here, which is why it looks a certain way compared to like the Mantis or the Zeus. And so that contemporary design is actually differentiates it from the other RSI ships in some ways. By February, the RSI Zeus was approaching the end of Grey Box, with the team polishing geometry around the ship. A redesign of the cargo hold was nearly complete, as was the change to the inner frame of the ramp and ramp piston mechanism. Additional high-frequency detail was added to help increase the illusion of inner structures between the exterior hull and the chassis, while maneuvering thrusters on the nose were removed to allow for better integration into the surface. A redesign of the ship-to-ship docking ring door and frame was done to better fit the RSI aesthetic. That's actually a pretty big advantage too. This ship has a docking ring. That's really not... That's not a lot of... Like, not a lot of ships this size have the ability to dock to other ships. Interesting one. While the mess hall was highly polished, the ship's habitation is currently being updated. The central hallway bulwarks were widened to allow for better navigation and consistency too. And you can kind of see where it is at that gray box stage. It honestly looks a lot like the white box stage, but they got a little bit more of that detail going on in there. And that was February. Like, they really... They spread it out. I'm wondering, you know, if they wanted to give this time and work on other things because they knew they wanted to release this at the end of the year. This is going to make them hot bucks for the end of the year. Anyone else watch that video today of that guy who deleted his $1,500 account? Looked like he was on the verge of crying in the vid. I did not see that. That's why delete that account? Why not just like sell it or something? Yeah, another way on and off the ship. Zeus is Freelancer size. Freelancers do have a poorly placed docking collar. Zeus is also C1 size though. The pain. Yeah, I don't know why delete your money. That's a... Sounds like a poor decision. And then in March, we had an update on the Zeus. Gray box was completed and all functionality was validated, with the ship currently in the beauty and polish stage. Habitation and the central hallways made significant progress and are approaching completion, while the cargo hold continues to progress, with the loading ramp's main piston structure improving rapidly, as well as the ramp interior and exterior. Okay, I want to see that freaking piston. Show me the cargo ramp's main piston. Why? This was such a focus point for them during the development, apparently. There was a shot of the ramp coming down, right? Sometime around the beginning here. Mrs. Tomatoes gang in chat. At the end of the video, you mentioned it's like premium ship since it carries CR's name. Wonder how influential CR was on this specific ship. He better make sure the RSI ships are doing well. That includes the Aurora, my friend. Fix the Aurora. Bring it up to this standard. Our starter ships should be getting an update like every couple of years, in my opinion. I know, wasted time, wasted effort, but like, it's the starter ship. It's literally how people get into the game. Oh, yeah, okay, I know who that is. They post on Twitter quite a bit. Show me the freaking piston. There it is. There it is. The legendary piston design, which needed like 2 months of reworks, apparently. Show me it in slow motion. Dude, I think the CL livery would look so good in black and yellow. I wonder how they had to redesign it for this. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if it actually will go down that fast. That's a pretty fast ramp. If anybody's beneath that, they're getting... They might have sped up that video clip or something. I guess the lights are all blinking at normal times. Who knows? Animation might be cleaned up. That's very fast. Uh-oh. Might have scratched myself. Has reverberations hitting the ground, so it looks intended. Dude, see, it... This is like one of the biggest this game is not finished kind of things. Every ship needs to reach this level of quality, and at some point, another ship, probably just a couple of years from now, another ship will come out and it will make this ship look outdated because they've upped the quality of ship releases by then. And in my mind, every single ship has to reach that a specific standard by the time Star Citizen comes out. And so whatever ship it is that is your favorite, I would say don't trade it in just because the new ship has things that seem new or act new or are a little bit better off than your ship, because your ship will also get an update to reach that. It might not be at that time. And some of you are probably playing the game for what you can do now, so I understand that. You want to trade in a ship, get a nice ship that you can run with right now. But when it comes to the overall game that we will be playing in a couple decades, just remember that your ship will get an update to that too. Yeah, there's got to be a lot of updates, and I don't know when they're going to start to go really hard on those updates, but at some point. That's why I'm holding on to a Terrapin. No joke. Okay, what else is going on in Star Citizen Land? Star Citizen Land? Star Citiland? This freaking website redesign, man. Imagine you're going to buy a new game and the first thing you see is, hey, buy this goodies pack for this convention. CIG. It's the optics, man. It's the optics. Let's see. So what else was going on? We got the Squadron 42 monthly report. They just did a Star Citizen live today. That'll probably be posted up here soon. The tech preview. They released the tech preview for some testing of the server stuff. Wikipedia posted, said starting today we'll be running a meshing playtest on the tech preview channel for up to 24 hours. This test will have each Stanton shard split into many authoritative zones. We're planning to start the test out at 1 DGS with 100 players as a baseline, and so that's, you know, how we normally play. And increase this to add more DGS with 500, and then as high as 1,000 players. Did anybody get the chance to take part in this? Was anybody involved in the test? Did we reach 1,000 players? They're possibly going with 6 servers over the entire Stanton system to reach 1,000 players. How'd it go? What was your experience? You heard 500 was okay, 1000 crapped? It was bad. Very bad. You got up to 1000, but it wasn't great. About as expected for them, and they discovered their bottlenecks. Okay. It ran well with 300 players, though. 350 worked great. $350 solid. And I mean, if they could split both servers, or both, I guess 350 is across a shard. So that would be 350 across 2 different star systems if they were able to hit that. And I bet the math isn't direct like that. It's probably... It probably changes based on the amount of geographic space that they're picking up. Only 15 server FPS with 300. Only 15! I know we're aiming for 30, but 15 sounds great to me. Honestly, if they can do 500 over 2 star systems, that's pretty chill. You had a solid 30 at 300. 30 frames per second on the server is freaking wild. Yeah, I would be absolutely ecstatic if we hit 500. I feel like part of the problem was having 500 people all load into a single landing zone at the same time. Fair. Okay, so they were hitting 30 frames per second on 300 player server, or 300 player shard in Stanton alone, but the ping wasn't great. Multiple seconds input delays, I see. Okay, well, I mean, is that no, I didn't get to take part in this one or the one at the beginning of the year. For anybody who did, is that better than the old tests on the MMQ as opposed to RMQ? Then to be honest, you know what? You know what I'll say? If server meshing allows them to run what we have right now, and let's say double the player count, so you still have 100, theoretically 100 in Stanton and 100 in Pyro, and they ran it with 200 and we got 30 frames per second with very little delay, how amazing would that be? Yeah, you're not going to see that many more players flying around, so what? AI's running smooth, services running smooth, the game itself running smooth, 30 frames per second. That would be so cool. Obviously, as an MMO, we want it to get a lot higher than that. And hopefully we can hear them talk a little bit more about how they feel about these tests. But overall, I would love to just have a smooth game in what we have right now. This was not the first test to implement meshing, no. They did it at the beginning of the year. Yeah, they're promising us one shard, or, you know, a small amount of shards way far from now. This is static server meshing. We're never going to get anywhere near what they want to do in static server meshing. So I'm talking about just in terms of this initial release of static server meshing, that sort of stability would be great. But when they go forward to dynamic server meshing, then we start to look at, you know, how many players can you fit in here into one shard? How far can you go? Yeah, 324.1 is releasing tonight. So 324.2 I could see coming for CitizenCon. That makes a lot of sense. They dropped the Zeus for CitizenCon. They'd get a whole bunch of purchases because people would have their eyes on the project for CitizenCon. And Nah, I don't think they'll get 4.0 out to PTU by CitizenCon, but that would also be very cool. Want to see the current state of meshing make its way to a pre-4.0 patch? That's another point. Will they test 4.0 Evocati with server meshing on? Or will they just open up an Evocati Pyro so that people could test everything else in 4.0 besides meshing? How much of that stuff is built and has to be running on a mesh environment? Like, there's a lot of details that we don't really know about how 4.0 is going to be tested so far. If they drop 3.24.1 today, that means the Atlas will probably be on the store. No point in testing 4.0 without server meshing. I disagree. I think it makes sense for them to, like, testing server meshing could make it difficult to test all the features in 4.0. And they might still want to get high-level testing to those features rather than making them wait until server meshing is in a stable enough state to put all those features in. Because, like, what if server meshing isn't super stable until late November? Too many 4.0 features to not separate them? Yeah, whatever they can, I feel like they should probably try and get out for testing as early as possible. I think they would want to get meshing in. But you probably also want to try and get engineering into testing. You want to get those outpost missions into testing. Yeah, there's a couple of big things in the update that I imagine kind of don't want to have to wait on, but they might not have a choice. Fire hazard stuff, engineering stuff, life support, new missions, location repair, like those are kind of key to get tested. Charge and drain. So many locations. Rock caves, nice. Forgot about those. Some significant stuff coming in 4.0. Oh yeah, character customizer. Like, what's holding that back, eh? It's actually interesting they didn't put that in 324.2. Not expecting any further... Yeah, didn't they already give us that update? About 324.1 going live? Yeah, it would help them if it was going to be as big as possible kind of update. The Zeus you're excited for is the MR, a bit of hopium in you that has an interest in bounty hunting V2. Worked on in summer, fall of 25. Maybe. Maybe they'll start working on it by that time next year. I got to do a stream. Maybe this Monday coming up, we'll do a stream about expectations for CitizenCon. I haven't talked about that much at all. Just to hear these and there these. How soon do I think we'll see 324.2 go to PTU? Oh, I forgot that was going to go to PTU as well. Oh, that's sketchy. If 324.2 needs to go to PTU, how would they run a 4.0 Evocati besides waiting until afterwards? Looking at upcoming features, you have more belief that there will be a 5.x series, but they generally don't switch up the big number for a testing series unless it indicates a big background tech being introduced. Like Planet Tech for 3.0 or server meshing tech for 4.0. RMQ stands for replication message queue. Kind of, sort of, possibly. I think 3.24.2 PTU will go tonight or tomorrow. I don't know if they want to push it out that quick. Yeah, so if 324.2 was for IAE, that means it would be running the PTU for the next 2 months, which would mean they could not put 4.0 to Evo until then. Which, that might be painful. Hopefully that's not what happens, but maybe that is what happens. Maybe they keep it on the preview channel. No. I said 324.2, not 0.1. Apparently they got to 1,000 players, but it didn't run very well. Yeah, there might be a 24.3 for IAE. There might be, because they've got to drop in a patch for IAE, and it probably won't be 4.0. So yeah, 3.24.3 is probably a November patch. 0.2 is an October patch. 0.1 is a September patch. I could see that. And then 4.0 in December. Fingers crossed real hard. Yeah, there's not always a patch for CitizenCon, no. Maybe a minor patch, but usually I don't believe there is always one. There was one last year. But I don't know, that would have been what, 3.14 point something in 21. I don't think they try to aim for one during CitizenCon. .4 will be Polaris. Coming for IAE. Probably, yeah. You think 324.2 will be a CitizenCon patch for the Zeus since it was introduced last year at CitizenCon? Yeah. That's our thinking. We got 3.19 at CitizenCon last year. Or sorry, 3.21. 22 was in December. And that brought some of the stuff from CitizenCon. Just a couple of the things from CitizenCon though. The hair updates. And is that it? Right, the minor patch we got was what did this include? Didn't this include interior or box inventories, or was that? Oh, that was 322. We got as many patches this year as last. Last year was a weird year for updates because of the way 3.18 came out. We got 3.18 and then 3.19 was basically 3.18.1. Then we got 3.20 and then 3.21 was kind of like 3.20.1. Now we got 3.22. So technically there were 5 major patches last year, but they weren't exactly major. This year we're doing 3.23, 3.24, and hopefully a 4.0, which would be 3 patches, and honestly they'd be 3 pretty decent sized patches as far as the stuff that comes in them. But that's depending on 4.0 actually coming out this year. If it doesn't, then it's 3.23 and 3.24, and and that's it. Yeah, these last 2 years, I'd say ever since 3.16, things have been kind of weird. Which is funny because 3.15 was the biggest update we ever got for like a good amount of time. Until we got 3.18, which was a full almost year and a half afterwards. Everything got weird after 3.16. Like nothing has really been as they like to do it, which going back all the way back to 2018 was pretty solid. 3 months, 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 and then suddenly, like a year between 3.17 and 3.18, and then everything was strange. What's my prediction for 4.0 to drop live? I don't know, man. There's no, like, I don't have enough information. Really want to see how server meshing is doing. From what you all said. Oh, are we ready to go?
We are ready.
All right. From what y'all said, it sounds like server meshing is in a place where it could release with 4.0 by the end of the year in a less than enjoyable state. 200 players on a shard. It's more than just the concurrent players we're getting in the updates in the preview channel right now. Like, it's the stability. It's how long can the servers last in a meshed environment. I feel like it's not going to be super apparent until they hit Avocati with it, and even then, things can change so much. So I don't know. Yeah, they didn't test missions. Like, the transit systems might have been broken. Still not enough info, but we'll have to see. Well, my friends, this wraps us up for the day. I hope you enjoyed your time hanging out, looking into the Zeus, looking into MFDs, talking about server meshing, all that jazz. We will be coming back tomorrow probably with some org gameplay. I hope one of our event teams got something planned for tomorrow evening. If not, we'll have to slap some folks around and see if we can get a good event going. If you're part of the org, I hope to see you tomorrow at the event around the same time. If you're not part of the org, consider joining us. ! GII will bring you to us. We're a good group of people. Good fun. Fun is had. Fun is good times. Like I said before I got into this stream, I just recorded my podcast with Avenger 1 talking about master modes, talking about the flight model, talking about all the people who like to talk about master modes. It was a decent talk. It was a good talk. It was solid. We came to a couple different conclusions about the flight model, how it could get better, why people are frustrated with it, what problems there might be, and what problems maybe don't exist. He also did indeed say in the podcast that master modes is not the problem. It's more about the tuning and balance. So keep that in mind. That'll be published on Monday if you want to check it out. Otherwise, stick around if you're on Twitch. We're going to raid right into the channel. We're going to do a cooking stream right now. We're getting our inner Brits on. We're going to make some bangers and mash. Me and Mrs. T will be in the kitchen. And we will be hanging out and having a good time on YouTube. The link is getting dropped in your chat if you guys want to head over there right now. I'll be there with you. The Saber Peregrine giveaway continues, folks, if you want to get an input on that. And yeah. Hey, despite the guest, I am hosting the podcast. If you enjoy my content, just know that every podcast episode is still going to be the kind of content that I, try to push forward. So have some faith in me, folks. I tend to get some decent conversations out of people. Either way, thanks again for being here, everybody. I hope you had a good time. And like I said, I will be with you again in like 2 minutes, probably less than that, in like 1 minute as we get started on our cooking stream. I'm going to shoot you over there on Twitch. Again, y'all on YouTube, hit up the link. come join us. You can ask any questions. We can continue the conversation over there. And we've got that multi-view camera set up for you this time, so it should be good times. Either way, go hug someone you love, eat something you love, all the good things, good vibes, good times, positivity. See you in a minute. Bye, everybody.